Greetings, brothers and sisters, and welcome to BBP. Now, if you're familiar at all with this ministry, you know that I don't talk about politics, and I stay away from current events that are so hyped up on social media that we have no way of knowing exactly what happened. Now, if we can't get the facts straight before we distort them, there's really no point in even discussing it. Instead, let's turn our attention to a story about Jesus when he was here on earth spreading the good news of his salvation. In John chapter 4, we read where he was traveling to Galilee and he took a shortcut through a large territory called Samaria. Now, the Samaritans were a group of people that were hated and despised by the Jews because of their heritage. They were part Jew, part Gentile. And if you weren't pure Jewish, then you were considered unclean, and Jewish people were forbidden to associate with them. That didn't matter at all to Jesus. He was and is on a mission to offer salvation to everyone, including the Samaritan woman we read about here in chapter 4. Now, let's consider a couple of things so that we can keep this story in perspective. Jesus is a Jewish priest, and he should not have been talking to this woman. But he's also the creator and savior of the universe, so he can talk to whoever he wants to, right? Yeah. Now, on the other hand, his followers are all Jewish, and as such, they follow the Jewish laws and traditions. Now, let's think about this. What do we call a group of people who outwardly express hatred for another group of people? Duh. We call them racists. And this is a two-way street for them. The Jews hated the Samaritans, but the Samaritans hated the Jews as well. Now, we have no reason to believe that Jesus' disciples were instantly transformed into perfection as soon as they met Jesus. In fact, we know from many of the stories here in the Bible that Jesus spent his 3 years here on earth pouring out his life into these men to change their beliefs and their attitudes. But tucked away in the middle of this story is a verse that speaks volumes about the transforming power of Jesus Christ. It has nothing to do with the Samaritan woman, even though she did receive an awesome transformation. No, this verse would be easy to overlook if you weren't familiar with the history of the Jews and the Samaritans. It's right here after Jesus asks the woman to give him a drink in verse 7. We see in verse 8, for his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. Now that may seem like an innocent verse on the surface, but I want to suggest to you that this group of men who were dyed-in-the-wool Jews would never have gone into Samaria to buy food. In fact, they would have gone out of their way to buy food in another city, or they would have gone hungry before they spent money in Samaria. But because these guys have been hanging around with Jesus, their hearts start to change. Their attitudes and prejudices started transforming into the likeness of Jesus Christ. And before long, these guys who used to argue with each other and question Jesus' decisions, they start acting more like Christ to the point where they have no problem associating with Samaritan people. In fact, it tells us in verse 27 that when they got back from the city and they saw Jesus talking to this woman, it says that they didn't say a word to him or to her. Our Savior is the only one who can change a hateful heart into a kind and loving heart. So that's my encouragement for you this week. Are people's lives being changed for the better because they're hanging out with you? It's something to consider. And I want to thank you for joining me here this week. And I hope to see you right back here next week with another new video. Well, thank you. And if you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to reach me. The addresses are coming up. Until next week, keep your eyes on Jesus and not on your troubles. Thank you.